Deep in the frozen wilderness of North America, there's something far more terrifying than any predator you can imagine. A creature born from humanity's darkest taboo, driven by an endless, consuming hunger that can never be satisfied. The Wendigo, a name that makes even the bravest hunters whisper in fear. This isn't just another monster from folklore. This is the embodiment of what happens when humans cross the line that should never be crossed. When survival pushes someone so far beyond the edge that they become something else entirely. Something that was once human, but now exists as a twisted reminder of our capacity for horror. If you're ready to discover the chilling truth behind one of North America's most feared legends, hit that subscribe button, because what you're about to learn will change how you see the wilderness forever. The Wendigo legend comes from the Algonquian peoples, including the Ojibwe, Cree, and Innu tribes of the Great Lakes region and northern United States. But this isn't just some campfire story meant to scare children. For these communities, the Wendigo represents a very real psychological and spiritual danger that could destroy their society from within. Picture this. You're living through the harshest winter anyone can remember. Snow piles higher than your shelter. The temperature drops so low that your breath turns to ice crystals before it leaves your mouth. Game has vanished. Your stored food ran out weeks ago. Your children are crying from hunger, their small bodies growing thinner each day. Your spouse looks at you with hollow eyes that plead for something, anything to eat. This is when the Wendigo whispers begin. The creature itself defies easy description because it exists at the boundary between the physical and spiritual worlds. Traditional accounts describe a gaunt giant, sometimes 15 feet tall, with yellowed fangs, sunken eyes that glow like coals, and skin stretched so tight over its bones that it appears almost transparent. Its heart, they say, is made of ice. Its breath reeks of decay and death. But perhaps most terrifying of all, it can never be full. No matter how much it consumes, the hunger grows stronger. The Wendigo doesn't just hunt randomly. It targets those who have already taken the first step down that dark path. Those who have tasted human flesh out of desperation or madness. Once someone crosses that line, the transformation begins. Not immediately, but slowly, like a poison working through their system. Mary Johnson, a trapper's wife, noticed the change in her husband first, through his eyes. They had survived the winter of 1878 by eating their horses, their leather boots, even bark from the trees. But when Thomas returned from his last hunting trip with meat he claimed came from a deer, Mary knew better. The way he devoured it, the way he looked at her and their children afterward, the way he started muttering about being so hungry, so terribly hungry, even after eating. "Thomas, what did you find out there?" she asked one evening as he sat staring into the fire. "Meat," he replied, without looking at her. "Just meat." "We needed meat." "What kind of meat, Thomas?" He turned then, and Mary stepped back. His eyes had changed. They were still his eyes, but something else looked out from behind them. something that saw her not as his wife, but as something else entirely. "Does it matter?" he whispered. "We're alive, aren't we?" The children aren't crying anymore, but Mary knew the price of that silence. She had heard the stories. She knew what happened to those who broke the ultimate taboo. The Wendigo doesn't just possess someone. It becomes them. It replaces everything that made them human with an endless, gnawing need. The transformation isn't instantaneous. First comes the increased appetite. Then the person starts to lose weight despite eating constantly. Their body temperature drops. They become withdrawn, spending hours staring at nothing, mumbling about hunger. Friends and family notice the change in their eyes, the way they look at people like they're calculating something. Dr. Nathan Carlisle, an ethnologist who studied Algonquian communities in the early 1900s, documented several cases of what he called Wendigo psychosis. He wrote about individuals who became convinced they were transforming into the creature, displaying symptoms that terrified their communities. One case involved a man named Swift Runner, a Cree trapper who during a harsh winter killed and ate his family. When authorities found him, he had grown unnaturally thin, despite having access to food. His community elders said the Wendigo had taken him completely. Swift Runner himself claimed he couldn't control his actions, that something inside him demanded he feed. "The hunger never stops," he told officials. "I eat and eat, but it's never enough." There's always more hunger. The psychological reality behind these accounts reveals something disturbing about human nature under extreme stress. Anthropologists have identified Wendigo psychosis as a culture-specific syndrome, where individuals become obsessed with cannibalism and develop an insatiable craving for human flesh. The fear of becoming a Wendigo served as a powerful social mechanism, preventing communities from resorting to cannibalism even in desperate situations. But the indigenous communities knew something that modern psychology struggles to explain. They recognized that some hungers, once fed, can never be satisfied. They understood that crossing certain moral boundaries doesn't just affect your actions, it changes your fundamental nature. The Wendigo hunt was a sacred responsibility. When someone showed signs of the transformation, the community had to act quickly. Warriors would track the affected individual, not to punish them, but to end their suffering and protect others. These hunts weren't acts of vengeance. They were mercy killings performed by people who understood that the person they once knew was already gone. Elder Joseph Crow Dog spoke about one such hunt his grandfather participated in during the 1890s. A respected member of their community, a man known for his generosity and wisdom, had begun showing the signs during a particularly brutal winter. "My grandfather said it was the hardest thing he ever had to do," Crow Dog recalled. "This man had taught him how to hunt, had been like a father to him." But when the Wendigo took hold, there was no choice. The thing that looked like his friend wasn't his friend anymore. It was something else wearing his face. The hunt lasted 3 days through deep snow and freezing temperatures. When they finally cornered the transformed man in a cave, He no longer resembled the person they had known. Emaciated despite having eaten recently, his fingernails had grown long and sharp. His teeth appeared larger, more pronounced. But it was his eyes that convinced them they were doing the right thing. There was nothing human left in those eyes, Crow Dog said. Just hunger. Endless, terrible hunger. The Wendigo represent more than just a monster story. It embodies the fear of what we might become when pushed beyond our limits. It's about the recognition that certain moral boundaries, once crossed, fundamentally change us. The creature serves as a warning about the consequences of letting desperation override our humanity. In modern times, some psychologists have drawn parallels between Wendigo psychosis and certain eating disorders or psychotic episodes. But indigenous communities maintain that this perspective misses the spiritual dimension of the phenomenon. They argue that some experiences transcend purely psychological explanations. Dr. Jennifer Reed, who has spent decades studying indigenous folklore, notes that Wendigo stories often emerge during periods of extreme social stress. These aren't just stories about monsters, she explains. They're about the fears that arise when social structures break down, when people are forced to choose between survival and maintaining their humanity. The Wendigo legend persists because it speaks to something universal in human experience. We all carry within us the capacity for both great good and terrible evil. The creature represents what happens when the balance tips too far toward darkness, when need becomes greed, when hunger becomes insatiable desire. Modern sightings and encounters continue to be reported throughout the Great Lakes region and northern forests of North America. Park rangers and hunters describe encounters with something that doesn't fit any known animal. Large, emaciated figures moving through the forest with unnatural speed. The sound of something large crashing through underbrush. But when investigated, only unusual footprints remain. The Wendigo stands as one of humanity's most chilling creations, precisely because it reflects our deepest fears about ourselves. It reminds us that the monster isn't something that comes from outside to threaten us. Sometimes the monster is what we become when we let our worst impulses take control. In those dark winter nights when the wind howls through the trees and hunger gnaws at your belly, remember the Wendigo. Remember that some hungers should never be fed, and some lines should never be crossed. Because once you do, there's no going back to who you used to be. Subscribe for more terrifying legends that reveal the darkness lurking in human nature.